Evening. This is election night 2022 for the municipal elections. I will be your host for the local results tonight. My name is Simran Bhamu, and we have so much exciting updates to share related to all the campaigns that we have noticed in the last few months. Tonight, I will have local elections reporter with me, Radina Montgomery. Over to you, Radina.
Hi, thank you, Simran. So tonight, nothing is for certain. The only thing that we know is that when the night is over, we're going to see about four new mayors in the town of Caledon. There'll be a new mayor, Orangeville, Amaranth, and the town of Erin. A couple of fun facts. Did you know that 417 municipal elections were held today in Ontario? 6,306 candidates were running for office in Ontario today. 548 of those have already been acclaimed to positions in Ontario. And the voter turnout in 2018 was 38.3%. Now, I understand that the advance polls are showing a slight increase from 2018. In 2018, the advance polls were 9.2%, and they're now 9.4%. So anyway, we don't have any results, but we're going to take you over to our L screen and explain what's going to happen this evening. So this beautiful screen you can see, if you look to the left, it's where all the councillors and the different municipalities will be listed. So at the top, you can see the municipality. The councillors' names will come down the screen, and on the bottom will be where the mayors are listed. So you'll be watching this throughout the evening. It rotates between Orangeville, Amaranth, Mulmer, Grand Valley, Mono, Caledon, Erin, Melanchthon, and Shelburne. So there's a couple of different municipalities we'll be watching that are not going to be shown on our screen this evening. They include Hamilton, Brampton, Mississauga, and Toronto. So back to Simran for more interviews and updates.
Thank you so much, Radina. So excited to see the results coming in. And today I would not be alone here. We would have our special guest, outgoing mayor for the town of Orangeville, Sandy Brown, and outgoing mayor for the town of Caledon. Welcome, Sandy. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simran.
Glad to be
excited. Yes.
Yes, I'm equally excited. And before we get into all that you have accomplished in your last few terms and for you in the last term, I want to hear from you. This was a very special last 4 years term that you had, right? Especially given the pandemic, how you pivoted. What exactly did you do to go through all those different challenges? And for you, Sandy, you have been a new mayor, right? Mm-hmm. So as soon as you got that term under control and then pandemic hit. So how did you tackle all of that, and what were some of the challenges?
Well, being a new municipal councillor, there was a quick learning curve. And I think our council looked back at the previous council term, and we tried to restore respect and decorum in the council chamber. That was one of the important campaign platforms that we had. But town staff was very instrumental in the learning curve for us. And so, you know, I have to hand it to our CAO, Ed Brennan, and the balance of staff that brought our council up to speed very quickly. And we were able to tackle some very important aspects of this council term.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Over to you, Ellen. The same question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, the pandemic was definitely, has taught us as a town to pivot. I have to say again, our new CEO just got sworn in, and about 2 days later we went into lockdown. So,
wow.
But she had been a long-term, she was the clerk before, so it was okay. It wasn't like it was somebody completely green, but it really taught us as a town to really be able to pivot. And, you know, for years it's taken us to get our building department up that we could do all our building permits online, our planning documents online, and all of a sudden matters of time within 6 weeks. We had the bugs out of it, and here we are, and it's worked extremely well. So I think the pandemic was a disaster in some ways, but I think it's been good for municipalities because we've been regulated so much, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing gave us that latitude to allow us to be able to move forward and allow us to pivot and be a more flexible municipality. And I think that was something the public's been asking for a long time, but it's taken the pandemic to really bring the best of what we could bring out.
Mm-hmm. And Sandy, you being so brand new in the council, were there any specific things on your priority list as a new member that you wanted to change that had to take a backseat due to pandemic?
Well, I mean, the two important platforms that we had in Orangeville that the council pushed through, of course, was the transition of policing from Orangeville Police Service to OPP, and then we had the issue of the railway. And Mayor Thompson and I were involved in the railway discussions. The town of Caledon is very supportive of this, what's going to be, I think, a wonderful recreational asset for this region, particularly town of Caledon. So that was important. But you know, when Al was talking about pivoting, the communication in the last 3 or 4 years, this idea of Zoom and Teams meetings and hybrid, I think the level of communication ability amongst staff, residents, and councilors is risen because of the pandemic. There's a bit of a silver lining there, and the fact that we've been able to communicate on such a immediate level. I mean, I'm sure Alan's been in his office and somebody rings him up in one of the staff and says, "Hey, Mayor, have you got 5 minutes?" And we're able to. So that's a real positive, I think, that's happened globally, really, on the ability to communicate.
So while we talk about specific positive things here, what do you think were some of the achievements for you, Sandy, that you were able to accomplish?
Well, the two big ones, of course, were the policing and the sale of the railway asset, which brought, $32 million into the coffers of the town of Orangeville. So that kind of windfall just doesn't happen. And we're looking for continuing savings as we move into the new billing model for the OPP. Alan and also Mayor Brian Saunderson, who's now an MPP from Collingwood, were two people that I relied on and spoke to, who both had been involved with OPP for many years. And it was their continued support of OPP and the understanding of the costing of them that really got me solidified in my thought process regarding the policing. So those are the two big things. I mean, there were a lot of other things. The pandemic kind of took the wind out of the sails on a lot of issues, and the chaos of the start and stop, and of course, the vitriol of the anti-vax movement and all this stuff was chaotic, but we got through it. We have to hand it to our town staff because their normal business of running a town of the size of Caledon and the size of the town of Orangeville is a busy, busy time with hundreds of employees and lots of stuff. So to layer on top of that the pandemic, I'm handing it off to town staff. They did a very good job.
Yes, and Alan, you have been in this position for more than however many terms, right? So I'm thinking that what kind of legacy are you leaving behind? What were some of those achievements that you will be really proud to talk about in the future?
Well, the one I was really hoping to get a closed door on was the broadband, and we're waiting for the Universal Broadband Fund to be announced by the federal government. They're about 16 months late delivering on that, but we kind of want to have that because it's important for Dufferin County as well as Caledon, because we're all part of that same system. But we're hoping to have fiber to every door by 2025. But if the feds don't get off the contracts are signed, just make the announcement, get on with it. And so we're a little bit of frustration that way. The provincial government has done everything they could possibly do. And I can remember that was one of the big challenges that we did have. The railway, again, I got to say the railway lands was something that was in the books for a while. I got to say, with Sandy and I too, we've had a frictionist relationship with Orangeville for a number of years over silly things. And that was something that I became mayor is let's all try to find a way to get along. And I got to tell you, the relationship we now have with Orangeville is fantastic, and it's long overdue. But I think that is another big one. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, we're the first municipality to renew the wampum belt in 2018 after 200 years for next 200. And this Friday, we're going to be signing an MOU with the Mississaugas, which is going to definitely help us, especially through they'll get a benefit out of the development charges, but on the other hand, it's going to definitely build a stronger relationship and allow, with all the growth that Caledon's going to take, we need a good relationship with our First Nations. And that's something that both Chief LaForme and I have been able to build a really good relationship, but I'm really hoping Brampton, Mississauga, and many other municipalities that are all part of the Agendas Treaty can carry on and do. You know, one thing is the cycle routes through Caledon, the paved shoulders on the roads has made it a lot easier for people to walk, cycle, and move farm machinery much safer. There's just, if you go down, there's just a number of things that I can say you checked off. We had a very aggressive work plan with both terms of council that I've had, and we've been able to get a lot of that accomplished even with the pandemic. So again, as Sandy said, kudos to staff. I have to say the same as well, as staff have been amazing to see to getting things continually being done. We got a recreation facility underway at Caledon East with the pool and exercise rooms and meeting rooms. Right on the end of our arenas. For the longest time, it looked like two soup cans on their edge, but we now have the final phase on that. The Southfields Community Center with the expansions of the seniors building over in Bolton. So we've had a lot of projects, you know, the all-day parking brought back into Bolton. And again, what we learned from Orangeville, you know, both of our heritage conservation districts. But what it's done is we've had over, 11 business openings right in that downtown core. So it tells you we must, pandemic or not, we're doing something right.
Yes, and that's a long list of things. Thank you so much, Ellen, for bringing that to our attention. But when you talk about recreation, that reminds me that we share these services, right? Orangeville and Caledon. And I want to understand from both the mayors, how exactly did that collaboration look like in action for you guys in the last 4 years? And what were some of those points of collaboration that really helped you both make certain decisions?
Well, I can tell you that the issue of the railway sale has been on the table for about 3 years now. Yeah. Alan's been sitting on Peel Regional Council, and a lot of this discussion was sort of behind the scenes until it finally was brought forward in the last year or so. But you know, creating active transportation. You know, I'm a cyclist. I've been on the trails in Caledon, which is, you know, I think these spur rail lines all over North America have been deemed surplus by the large railway companies, including now the Orangeville-Brampton rail line, and converting them into active transportation and you know, having B&Bs and cafes and natural heritage features. All these things, I think, are going to be incorporated by Region of Peel and the town of Caledon and the city of Brampton as they develop this. So, you know, you mentioned collaboration. It's not just on recreation. You know, we've talked about a number of things from the hospital collaboration to land use and planning that may serve both municipalities. And I think it's important for all new mayors that come in to think about collaboration and inter-municipal collaboration, because it's silly not to, right? I mean, you accomplish more if you're working together on things than having friction, as Alan had mentioned. It happened in the past between Caledon and Orangeville. So.
And Alan, I would like to take it to you to discuss specifically the collaboration related to hospital. And I do see one of the mayoral candidates in your riding has been promoting use of a specific land that was donated as well for emergency services. Yes. So what is your take on it? Give me some insight on that.
No, it was actually it was a farmer, and originally back in the early '90s under the NDP government, Ruth Greer had the farm deemed for a future dump, garbage dump, which would have been a ecological disaster, especially with the high water table and everything in that particular site. He was grateful. The community rallied a bit beside him. So he has, he has about 300 acres of land and gave 20 acres to do this. And I think it's a very nice gesture. And it was his way of giving back to the community, saying, "Thank you. You helped me. Now I'm going to help you." So I think it's good. The other challenge that we're dealing with is all the Ontario Health Networks and the way they want a site for hospitals, because of the expansion of Brampton Civic and Peel Memorial and Etobicoke and Mackenzie Health Center. They say, well, in Orangeville, where it's situated, we want to be further west for a future hospital. But for an urgent care center, for the populations that we're going to take, and we're at 82,000 now, but we're going to be at 300,000 in 20 years. You know, it's almost the size of what Markham is today. We have to look at things differently. So this long-term sites, this is something we have to look at. And to me, with that gesture is definitely going to be an asset for us going forward.
Perfect, thank you. And now that we were talking about certain issues that have been brought to the forefront during the campaigns, I want to ask you, Sandy, what is your take, or give me some insights on how specific people have been targeting the sale of railroad and suggesting that that was not the right decision. So help me understand some of the positives.
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, I like commuter rail. I mean, I think, you know, when you look at Metrolinx, you see the GO Transit network. It's traveling through high-density population areas. It's going up Yonge Street, millions of people on Yonge Street. It's going across the lakefront in the Toronto area, millions of people. It's going into Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, millions of people. Unfortunately, up to Orangeville through Caledon, you know, and you think about the development of Orangeville, we're restricted by water and sewer capacity. We're restricted because we're surrounded on three sides by the Greenbelt and a lake. So Orangeville isn't in a place to grow. I mean, if we had unlimited water and sewer and no Greenbelt around us, we'd be Newmarket or Milton already. So, you know, people have to, you know, be careful what they wish for when they talk about commuter rail, because the only way the federal and provincial government is going to bring that type of expenditure in our area is if the population density dictates it. And you know, Alan's talking about 300,000 in southern Caledon. They are talking about bringing some commuter rail into the lower part of Caledon. If you look at the 2041 plan for Metrolinx, Orangeville isn't even mentioned, other than perhaps an express bus up Highway 10. So for people to think about commuter rail in our area, it's not going to happen in your grandchildren's lifetime, right? It's not, it just isn't. We just don't have the population density. So what do we do with it? You know, I talked to one of our local manufacturers, and I asked him why he's not using the rail line to bring his pellets. There's a plastic plant, right? And they buy these pellets from the United States. He said, we bring it up to Guelph and then we truck it over to Orangeville. And it's less expensive than using your rail line, Sandy. And I went, oh, well, now we have a solution. So each of these manufacturers, 2 in Brampton, 4 in Orangeville, have a truck transport solution that doesn't really affect their business. In fact, it saves them money. So when you put all this together and think about recreational facilities and the trail networks, and the people like cycling, they like hiking and walking, it just made perfect sense to, you know, pivot essentially this asset of the town of Orangeville, a real estate asset, and sell it and convert it into cash, which can be used in some other way, and turn it over into other government hands. Now, if by some crazy, you know, thing that you know, a new transportation technology comes along, or the population density increases, it's still in government hands. The corridor is still in government hands, and if it has to be converted back, it'll be decades down the road. It will. So there were just a whole lot of positives and not very many negatives in terms of that. I mean, the commuter rail solution just isn't going to happen, and it won't for decades.
So when you talk about cycling and, you know, all these trekking options and all of that people would be able to enjoy now after the sale of this rail line, what would be your response to people claiming that because rails were the future, and from an environmental perspective, what would be your response to them in defense of that decision? How do we weigh in, you know, favoring the environment and the futuristic approach versus managing the money?
Well, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, please.
And actually, the one thing that Sandy hasn't said is, for the rails that are sitting there are old and dated. They're like what they call an 85-pound rail. Today, for high-speed rail, you almost need a 185-pound density rail. So it means that you would have to replace the whole rail line. Well, we were talking about $700 million to do something like that.
43 bridges between Orangeville and Streetsville.
And to bring it up to code to be able to move it. So it's the cost feasibility to ever make that is very, very difficult. You kind of need the province as a partner on that. You've heard the 413, everybody's calling the mega highway, whatever, but it's been from the very beginning an LRT as well. So we're going to have a transit that's going to link us into York Region, down to Oakville and Mississauga. So like that LRT is important. And also we have the Huron-Ontario LRT coming into Brampton that could come up and meet at the 413 as well. This also allows Orangeville residents not to have to drive into Toronto, come down Highway 10, you know, and pull off at the cutoff there and get on in the LRT or wherever they want to go, and off they go. So I think there's a lot of other things that we have to look at, and with the new scale of development, and to me, you've looked at the disruption that's happened in Toronto and York Region and Brampton, Mississauga, putting the LRT in after the fact. With all the population we have, wouldn't it be smart if we built it first and then built everything around it, get the density there once and for all, versus disrupting neighborhoods and communities having to do the high intensification that both Brampton and Mississauga are now very happy about, and that's still a debate with this council, this municipal election right now.
Yes.
People are upset. They're fighting to keep their community not being swallowed up with the LRT coming through. But we have to think different ways on how to travel. You know, you're looking at the automobile, the gasoline automobile is going to be gone within 10 years. You know, it's either going to be electric or hydrogen or whatever new technology is going to be. But there's going to be many other ways that we have to look at. So to get that rapid rail to Orangeville, I think it's going to be in many different ways. And you're starting to look even in the in Europe, and starting to happen now, especially over landforms. Is it all coming back to tram rails? You know, that follow the topography of the land. You know, maybe that's what our solution is for Caledon and Orangeville in the future. You just don't know. It's happening, right?
A transportation expert said to me the easiest thing to do would be to have an express bus lane down Highway 10.
Yeah.
The corridor is already there, so we can create that express bus lane.
Perfect, thank you. So while we are at it, I would want to hear more from you on Highway 413 controversy and how certain people are utilizing it on their platforms.
Yeah.
But before that, we would have Diana Morris from Dufferin Board of Trade with us, and I'm going to have some conversations with her to do with what is her approach and what is her opinion to do with the new mayors coming in to these various towns within Dufferin that she will be working with. Diana?
Hi, Simran. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for speaking with me tonight.
Thank you. So Diana, I would get straight to the point, and I would love to hear any comments that you may have on moving forward with a new mayor and working with the town.
Oh, absolutely. We're really looking forward to continuing to work with the new councils. We've had tremendous success with our past council. Working with the town of Orangeville, we've been able to do things like organize the large skilled trades events. The mayor Mayor Sandy Brown was instrumental in helping the Board of Trade make that happen. We saw 1,000 people attend that event, and we connected employers with potential skilled trades employees. And that was only possible due to working with the municipality. So we're really looking forward to moving forward to continuing to work with the municipalities to make things like that happen for the businesses in our area.
Yes, so when we talk about businesses in our area, given like how we have all gotten out of this pandemic and how it has caused so much issues with the business atmosphere in Orangeville and around Orangeville, basically all of Dufferin. So what do you think does the future of local businesses look like now going forward out of this pandemic?
Absolutely. We know that some sectors did struggle a lot worse than others. And a lot of the businesses, as they're coming out of the pandemic, they're still struggling for employees. So as I heard the two mayors talking about transportation, obviously that's a huge issue that our businesses are looking to help solve in order to get the employees that they need. That's one of the main issues that our businesses tell us every day, is that they just don't have the access to the workforce that they need. And then other businesses, things like the tourism sector and whatnot, they're going to take a bit of time to recover, and we'll certainly help promote the businesses and do what we can in partnership with the municipalities to help those businesses recover.
And when we talk about lack of human resources to support our retailers, to support our businesses here as employees in town and around in Dufferin County, what do you think is going to happen with the new regulation in place with international students being able to work up to 40 hours starting November 15th?
That will absolutely be beneficial for a lot of our local employers. We know that one of the challenges that the local employers have is housing. Their employees can't necessarily afford to live and work in Dufferin County. So I know with international students, there are some that attend the local campuses, but that is certainly a struggle with them as well to get affordable housing locally here. So I'm hoping that, obviously housing is a bigger picture. It's not necessarily a municipal picture, but I'm hoping that the municipalities can work with planning, and we can, work on some ways to get some more affordable and accessible housing here in the area.
Definitely. So how you collaborated with the current mayor right now, Sandy Brown, who's with us today. So how you collaborated with him with the trade skills. Do you see any kind of collaborations in future as well to promote housing situation or to help out or with any kind of ideas in that direction for the town?
Oh, absolutely. Every year we do a business needs survey. So we ask all of our business owners, what are the issues that keep you up at night? And then we take these results and we share them with the municipalities. And if we find that the top 3 issues quite often are lack of employees, maybe tax issues, and quite often high-speed internet. So we take these 3 issues and we always look on how we can act as a voice of business, how we can partner with the municipalities to help alleviate some of the problems that our local businesses are facing.
Perfect, thank you. And are there any other existing collaborations that you have going on with any other organizations within Dufferin County that have been supportive of all the initiatives to do with supporting and promoting businesses locally?
Of course, yes. We work quite a bit with the economic development offices, both in the town of Orangeville and in the town of Shelburne. And we work with a lot of other, we're a nonprofit grassroots organization, and we work with a lot of other organizations like that across the municipality. Partnerships and collaborations are so important because no one of our 8 lower tier municipalities is an island. We all need to work together to support the needs of all of the businesses across the region. So it's so important to work collaboratively whenever possible.
Thank you, Diana. That was quite insightful, and I'm sure the members who are running for these various positions will be able to listen into this and get some cues on what should be the priority to do with businesses. Maybe you would like to thank our outgoing mayor, Sandy Brown, for the last 4 years in his term, and I would like to say thank you for joining us as well. So over to you, Diana. Whatever message you want to give to Sandy Brown.
Thank you so much, Simran. Thank you, Sandy. It's been a pleasure working with yourself and the other councillors and everyone on town council. It's been a fantastic 4 years. We're really looking forward to working with the new team of the next 4 years. And across all of our municipalities, we've made some excellent connections, and we're looking forward to, I want to thank everyone. I know it's been the past 3 months, everyone who's running. It's been a really challenging couple months for you. I know people aren't resting. It's an incredibly busy time, and I want to thank all of those for stepping up and putting your name forward to represent our communities.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you for all the work that you do with your organization. It's excellent grassroots work, and I'm sure all the businesses that are members of the Board of Trade are very thankful for all your work and the work that your team does. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. So now moving on to Radina, and here's some more updates from her.
Thank you, Simran. We're still waiting on some local results, but until we get those, in the meantime, just to let you know that John Tory has won his seat. He took 60.76% of the vote, as well as Bonnie Crombie has been elected to Mississauga. She took 43.6% of the vote. So those two have been already declared. We're still waiting here. We have a team that's working behind the scenes that you can't see. Madison and David, they're on the phones, they're on the computers trying to get us numbers as soon as we can. As soon as we have some local numbers, we will bring them right to you. So don't go away. Back to you, Simran.
Thank you, Radina. So wow, that's an update. Mayor Crombie has won the election. So now, with that, I've been hearing a lot of controversies to do with Caledon's regional development and what Mayor Crombie's take was on that. So I would love to hear your insight on that, Ellen.
Well, to me is that's comes down to politics 101, and between Mayor Crombie and Brampton, we did lose 2 seats at the regional table. So normally we've had 5. Representation at the for 24 seats at the regional table, and so basically they took 2 from us and gave it to Brampton. I honestly believe that Brampton needs to have all our councillors at the table, being a bigger urbanized area. So now they didn't really meet that mandate. But Mayor Crombie ran a good campaign, and I wish her the best of luck and the best of success going forward.
Perfect. And what do you foresee in future? Let's say now Patrick Brown is also in the run, and what if he wins as well? So what do you see that combination doing to the regional development now? Do you think that issue is going to resurface again?
Well, the one thing is Mayor Crombie was always asking to, have a separate, going separate from Peel Region. Under the province of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne told us bluntly, I can remember April 1st, 2015, both Mayor Jeffries and Mayor Crombie and myself, play nice in the sandbox or we'll make you the city of Peel. I think eventually, when Caledon and Brampton, Mississauga all get built out, it will become a single-tier municipality, very similar, that's always been in the long-term plan, very similar to what's happened to Toronto, what's happened to Hamilton and Ottawa. At that point when we're built out, we're going to be what Toronto is today. We're going to be 2.5 to 2.7 million people. We're almost to 2 million people now in the region of Peel. So as Caledon builds out, that's what it's going to look like. To break Mississauga away for the cost of the infrastructure, it'll be more costly for the taxpayers, more costly to break up, something that the region of Peel is looked at around the world. Here in North America, and when I've gone to municipal conferences, just very similar to as Sandy has, the region of Peel is revered as a model for everybody to measure to. So why blow up something that works very, very well?
Okay, all right. So what's your take on that, Sandy? How does that impact Orangeville or the rest of the Dufferin County?
Well, it's interesting because Dufferin County has got some interesting challenges as well. We've got 44 elected officials for 65,000 people. It's, I think there needs to be, some thought put into that, and I think the provincial government's going to have to look at ways for efficiencies. I think maybe there needs to be some amalgamations happening, but everybody likes their autonomy, and even the small municipalities like their autonomy. But really, when you look at it, there is some inefficiencies in operating in that way, and I remember reading talk about Dufferin joining Caledon at some point. If Brampton and Mississauga split off, so I think Caledon, particularly Southern Caledon, is really part of the GTA, much more so than Dufferin is, and so it's a different animal, I think. And you brought up the 413. I think if the projections for population growth are what they are, and everybody's pointing this direction, you have to put some infrastructure in place. And our council sent a letter in opposition. However, it's something that I've been thinking twice about since that happened maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago. You have to lay down the infrastructure, or else I've been to New York City a number of times, and if you look at the electric train system coming out of Penn Station and Grand Central, it's like spokes of a wheel. And those things were put in place 100 years ago or more, and it was sort of prescient for, the forefathers and or persons, whatever we want to call them, from 100 years ago, laid these things in place long before the infrastructure was needed. So if you don't have, strong highway infrastructure to transport goods, and as Alan said, to marry up the LRT, you get chaos. And Toronto itself is already in the midst of traffic chaos. I used to commute there all the time. Now when I go in there, it's like, oh boy. I mean, I was a sales guy. I would get around town. I could do 5 or 6 sales calls in a day in Toronto. Now, I bet you salespeople can't get 2 or 3 calls in. So I guess thank heavens for essential service internet and Teams meetings and things like that, because those kind of Zoom conferences and Teams conferences are used in the business world now.
Yes.
And Alan was just sharing with me, this, and he was a big proponent of this, both provincially and federally, of internet as an essential service. And we've seen how important it is regarding work from home and study from home. And that's not going away, right? And so that really robust internet is something that is going to happen we have a big country and we're spread out an awful lot, so it's going to be much more expensive than it would in a more densely populated country. But I think we all have to admit that has to be done. Sooner the better.
Yeah, so you've brought up a great point to do with internet and everybody having access to internet now. But I will come back to that topic, but I will want to hear your take on that 413 controversy. All these people opposing 413, what do you have to say to them?
Well, it's already done. The provincial government ran it as their mandate. The two opposition parties, or all three opposition parties, were against it, and they won with the biggest majority ever. So I think it's been spoken, it's been dealt with, especially in the area where the corridor is going. The votes said that. So to say that you're going to stop it or whatever, it's a provincial initiative. Say you're going to stop it, the horse is already out of the barn. And to me, that's something that it's already done. What we need to do is figure out how to work with the residents and everybody to how to put it through so that we're not breaking up the major farm clusters coming through the area, and how to live and deal with it. And so to me, I think it's already done. And it was in the throne speech as well. The two major things was the 413, how they're advancing and moving forward with it. Two is the peer review that has been done by the federal government, and my council did ask for that as well. But it isn't as stringent as the provincial one, but it's making sure that it's being peer reviewed and everything's checks and balances are there, and that's what we need to do. Having said that, it will move forward, very similar to what in the throne speech as well. As they said, broadband has finally got theirs and deemed as an essential service provincially. We can get the federal government to do the thing, not saying it's necessary, but it's essential, similar to what hydro was 100 years ago. To me, I think it is we need fiber to the door. That's the gold standard. We've relied on towers and cellular and Wi-Fi, but you can tell it's not perfect. And to have the fiber to the door is the answer, and I do believe we have a plan, both federally and provincially. If we can just get the federal government to move forward, that would be extremely helpful. But also, what it'll be for being chair of the rural caucus for 2.5 years for all of Ontario, representing all the municipalities, 438 municipalities are all deemed rural. The one thing we're asking was broadband was our key thing, because that way everybody can stay. They don't have to leave their communities. We're not having the brain drain of talent being drawn into Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, the big urban areas. They can stay and work from home, stay in their communities where they grew up and where their friends are. So I do believe this is going to rejuvenate rural Ontario as well. And I think COVID showed that people wanted to get out and move away. And the biggest challenge is finding enough homes for everybody as well, and what's affordable. And we're going to go through a bit of a tight spot, I think, in the economy right now too. But what does that really look like? And I think with the initiatives that the province is trying to move forward, and I think what the provinces are doing across Canada, I think is rather positive. To me, I think we're going to definitely hit a recession, but I think it'll be more of a correction than a real it's going to be as painful as some previous ones are.
Yes, absolutely. And as you said, that an affordable house for everyone, that is going to be the goal. But how awkwardly the real estate market is moving now. What is your take from that business perspective, the expertise that you have in that field, as well as a mayor? What is your take on that to do with growth?
I read of course the white paper that the province put out on housing, crisis affordability, and they kind of threw municipalities under the bus to a certain extent on red tape and NIMBYism. And I got to tell you, from my chair, they hit a couple important points. There is some issues with councils. If you, in my opinion, supply is a big part of this problem. And if the supply cannot meet the demand, then you get into this pricing conundrum that we're in. And so I think the province is working to lighten the planning load to some extent and allow development to go at the grassroots level a lot smoother. For instance, I think if I'm not mistaken, in New Zealand, any property owner can have 3 residential units on their property. They don't have to ask for zoning permission, for instance. And some of these things can push this type of thing forward, because I think building these individual units and infill development is probably some of the easiest things to do, rather than the big subdivisions that take a lot of time, a lot of environmental review and checking for water supply. And in the case of the town of Orangeville, we've got to make sure we have enough water, because we're not connected to the big pipe, for instance. So, you know, there's hurdles that developers have, and I think the province is right in trying to address those hurdles and smooth things at the municipal level a little bit more than they are right now. But yeah, NIMBYism and red tape at the municipal level does slow down
So
development.
talking about NIMBYism and red tape.
But also, I
yes,
will
please
jump
go
in
ahead.
if I
Yeah,
can on
yeah.
that. Even I've pushed back both to Premier Ford and Minister Clark. A lot of the stuff that we're held up with studies and recommendations are all coming from the province as well. If you want to help us out, moderate the environmental assessment. The environmental assessments were necessary back in the 80s and the 90s because we had no data, no information. The work that the conservation authorities, we know practically where all the wetlands are, we know where all the floodplain is, we know where all this stuff is. To me, the EA needs to still be there as a trigger that if there's data missing, then you have a partial EA to know what it is. But what we're asking is there's so much that the province asks us for the requirements we need for zoning. There's information that's redundant. We already know what the information is, and we're asking the developers, we're asking everybody to go and do these studies. And we're legislated to do that because Municipal Affairs and Housing tells us. Lift that off. If we need it, then it doesn't need it. And that'll allow things to move forward. That way it gets the costs down. That way it would force, showing we're saving the developer money, then you make sure you take it off the price of the house so that it's affordable for the people. And I really believe that'll make a big difference too. So as much as Sandy's quite right, there's a lot of things we need to look at, red tape, how we do things, how our attitude is. You know, and with a lot of planners, it's still a lot easier to say no. It's not. What we have to do is say, okay, this is what we need to do. How do we make it happen, and what's an efficient way to do it without sacrificing anything? But what I'm finding is there's so many studies that are being asked by developers or anybody, any citizen that wants to come, well, you need this and this and this. Well, it's not necessary. We already know. We already know the information. We should only be asking for the information we don't have. Noise, dust, absolutely. That's something. Traffic studies, you got to do that. But all the other studies that we're asking for, well, with the hydro Gs and everything, there's enough there. We know where all the water is. We know what we've got. Move on. But the problem is we can't streamline our processes because we're legislated by the province. So they've got to kind of pull that off us as well. It's both ways. And Sandy's right. They've really beat on us, but they haven't looked at themselves. We almost need to buy them a big mirror so they can look at themselves. But it's got to be done by both.
Yeah,
So
100%.
when, specifically in Orangeville, I'm going to bring to your attention something that we have recently done. And, you know, when you as a council, you know, say yes to whatever a developer is presenting, because they already have gone through their paperwork, they have done their due diligence, they have the zoning, they have the permits, right? They're just waiting on a yes from you. So if a council, because I did go through a post by one of the deputy mayor candidates, and they mentioned that they would go against development related to that or something along those lines. So what would be your take on that if council were to say no? What should residents know? What will be the repercussions of that no from council to the
Well, I can
developers?
tell you that one of the recommendations within the province's white paper was that if a council voted against the recommendations of their planning department, that there would be significant financial penalties imposed by the province against the municipality. And this happens. Like, our planners are people who have got decades of experience in these matters. They have already done all the homework necessary with the developer. In some cases, been working for 10 years to get it to the point where it's dropped onto the council table. So for some councillor who really doesn't have that kind of expertise to be listening to the NIMBY who says, well, I don't want that beside my house, you know, we need to have legislation in place that penalizes people for just outright NIMBYism and not following, because our planners, they're not in the pocket of the developer. They're not in the pocket of the council. They're down the middle. They're just trying to provide the truth to us. That's my take. It. I don't know, Alan, if you, but you know, the planners just do their job, what the legislation says they're to do, and then they present it to us. There's already been a lot of background information and negotiation with the developer before it even hits our desk. So, you know, it's really important that development happens in a good way, that we all want the environment to be respected in any development, but when it gets to a certain point, after many years of all of these studies, and there could be as many as 10 different studies required for a development to happen. So
Okay.
I think I can't.
So I will come back to that. Let's hear some more updates from Radina first, and then we're going to continue our conversation with Mayor Sandy Brown.
Thank you, Simran. So unfortunately, some of the numbers are coming in very slowly here, but in our municipalities to the south of us, Patrick Brown has been re-elected again in Brampton with 61% of the vote. We are starting to get some numbers in here for Orangeville. So right now, with one voting location reporting in, Lisa Post is leading by a small margin against Jeffrey Patterson, Jeremy Williams, and Kim Reed. We also have 5 councillors showing some numbers here. Debbie Sherwood is leading at the moment with Joe Andrews, Andy McIntosh, Tess Prendergast, and Peggy Bond. And those are just really preliminary numbers. That's only one of the 10 voting locations here in Orangeville. Also, if you're following along on the screen, there's also other numbers popping up for Grand Valley is starting to show some numbers. And we're doing our best here to get you numbers as fast as we can. And that's all I've got at the moment. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Radina. Wow, that is some excitement in the numbers there. It would be really fun to see how the night progresses and how the counting goes up. So we were in discussion with Mayor Sandy Brown, and he was talking related to how exactly does land development, saying yes or no to land development, impact the town? What could be some of the implications? And I think something along those lines almost ended up happening, because in one of the council meetings, if I recollect correctly, I think council did say no to one of the developers. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, if you're talking about that Cache Homes development, the problem was that we had given direction to our planning director and our legal counsel to sign minutes of settlement with the developer. The council had given that direction. And then when it came back to sign the bylaw, the confirmatory bylaw, some council members rejected it.
Yes.
So that got us into potential legal problem, right? We're delaying, unreasonably delaying the development, and if it was going to be appealed then to the LPAT or the Land Tribunal, we were in a no-win situation because we'd already given council approval to sign these. So some of these political stunts are not helpful. And again, we talk about putting up hurdles and councils putting up hurdles to move development along. And that's a perfect example of what shouldn't be happening. And that would have been the case if the province has their way and they put some of this legislation in place that they're suggesting, where council would be penalized, because not only did the planning department give their authorization for this development, but the council had already approved it, and then it came back and was reneged on. And so that would have been a perfect example of a fine in the case of the provincial legislation proposed. So.
And back to you, in your last 8 terms as a mayor, have similar kind of issues come up to your attention as well, where there was a pushback for certain developments?
Our biggest pushback is for the aggregate. And the M&R basically pretty much have control, but through our official plan, we did get some safeguards put back in the late 90s. Other municipalities, City of Hamilton and North Dumfries, have similar, and they've learned from ours and built it better, and we need to go back and build it. I think it's to protect the public. Caledon sits on a lot of aggregate. It's the closest to market. We do definitely have a big quarry, a blasting quarry coming in, and we put a you know, we brought we had an emergency or a special council meeting last week, basically knowing how our exposure was with the application gave us that year to be able to get everything that we need done in our official plan as well as the region's official plan, so that we can protect the residents, especially for water, noise, and dust control, and truck traffic, and how to mitigate that. The issue is that is one of the biggest challenges. We ended up approving a couple pit expansions, and the residents are really upset. Well, unfortunately, once a license has been issued by M&R, it's pretty hard. You try to work with it. Mm-hmm. They had permission to go below the water table. So the one thing under the Source Water Protection Act, a lot of people don't know, and the elected officials running, is that if you have water contamination happening in your community, as a councillor, you can be personally sued under the Protection Act. A lot of people don't realize that your home, everything can be liable. Mm-hmm. So what do we do to protect ourselves as a municipality as well as our council? Is that we, like the James Dick at the Erin Quarry, when they did the expansion over Winston Churchill, we basically said, okay, you're going to mine under the water. Well, they said it's not a big issue. It's just a drag line. There's no contamination. Well, you know, the bottom line, if you feel that good, then you indemnify council as well as the municipality. And they did. So then, of course, they went ahead and, you know, they got their approval. They were going to get their approval no matter what. As Sandy said, you go to the board. The staff are saying, hey, it meets all the tests. It's deemed complete. They've got everything. So we did get something for the communities. We're protecting everybody. And now that they know that they're indemnifying everybody, they're going to do their utmost to protect that water source. So there's different things there's certain things we can do, but we can't do. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you know, you should just say no to quarries completely. Well, if you do, they can just go right to LPAT, shut the municipality out, and you have no public input, right? So we have that. As far as the community with development, yes, you know, 80% of Caledon's protected by the Greenbelt. The Oak Ridges Marine, the Niagara Escarpment, we got just about every provincial regulation in Caledon on us.
Yes.
But having said that, we do have areas places to grow. Said there's 20% of Caledon that's in play, and that's where a lot of the population's going. That's where the GTWS corridor is going with the LRT as well as the highway corridor. And you know, a lot of them say, well, use the 407 as well. Well, I do believe the 407 needs to be accessible for trucks today. We need to find a way to figure out how to do that, especially now it's in the care and the control of Canadian ownership. We need to work with the pension funds and say, hey, let's try to figure out how we can make it affordable for trucks. But that's only short term. Within 10 years, it's going to be at capacity like what the 401 is today. We know that with the growth that's coming. That's why we need the 413 at some point. But, you know, as they said, well, it's taking farmland out of production. No, the province already said that back in 2015. If it's not going to be a corridor, it's either going to be houses or factories or something, or business parks. So it is part of that development corridor that's going through there, and we need that. Mississauga has it, Oakville has it, they all have it. They have those corridors, and we need to have something too to allow people to move. So it's the way.
Thank you.
Way that
was actually quite insightful. And you know what? When we talk about Insight, I would love to hear some more updates. Looks like we have some more numbers coming in. So over to you, Radina. Share some exciting numbers with us, please.
Thanks, Simran. Okay, just a quick recap on the municipality of Malmer. As we talked about earlier, the county of Dufferin makes up several different municipalities, Orangeville, Shelburne, Grand Valley being 3 towns, as well as Mono. And then we have some other municipalities, including Malmer. So just to recap, the mayor was already acclaimed, so we weren't looking at the mayor numbers, but we have some unofficial numbers coming in for the deputy mayors. So Earl Hawkins is leading at the moment with 708 votes. Shirley Boxham is 597. And then within our councils that we have to elect 3 of, we have Patricia Clark, who is a current councillor with 877 votes. Andrew Cunningham, who is also a current councillor with 854 votes, followed by Kim Lyon with 592 votes, and Daryl Stansfield with 524 votes. And then Timothy Trefenchio with 155, and Barry Smith with 114. We also have in Orangeville 3 of the 10 voting locations now reporting in. So I'll just recap that. We have Lisa Post with 1,137 votes. Followed behind her is Jeff Patterson with 577, Jeremy Williams with 262, and Kim Reed with 80. Our deputy mayor candidates, Todd Taylor with 1,665 votes, and Trevor Cassioni with 336 votes. With our councillors, we have 5 to be elected. Leading the pack right now, very closely, is Debbie Sherwood with 1,396 votes, Joe Andrews with 1,334 votes, Andy McIntosh with 1,232 votes, followed by Tess Prendergast with 1,026, and then Rick Stevens has just hit the board here at 840. So that is just 3 of the 10. Those are the top 5 numbers coming in, and as you can see, the numbers are down the screen. We're still waiting to get numbers in from Caledon, one of the larger ridings in our municipality, and we're still waiting to get numbers in from the town of Erin. So as soon as we have those, we will come back to you with those numbers. Again, just to reiterate, down the side of the screen, you'll see the numbers. Right now, you're seeing numbers for the school board, and then at the bottom will be the numbers for the mayors. Okay, so we'll be back with more numbers. They're going to be coming in really fast at this point, so we'll probably be breaking in and out of the conversation very quickly. So back to you, Simran.
Thank you. Wow. So Lisa Post is in lead and with a big margin as compared to the other competitors for the same position. So let's see, it is going to be quite a race tonight. So over to you, Sandy. Continuing the conversation that we had, and when Alan was, he said a couple of times in his conversation here that residents are not aware, they don't know, right? So in a layman term or in a layman way of explanation, if you were to put it forth, how exactly does land development impact the affordable housing or housing in general in a municipality? How would you put it across for residents?
Well, my knowledge of the real estate market is it's an upwardly mobile market. So, if you slot new housing into any price point, it means that somebody's moving up into that spot. And so as you continue to move up from, the $1 million home, somebody the 700,000, and then somebody from 400,000, right down to the person that's living in their car that finally gets the opportunity to move into a basement apartment. So things move upwardly. So whenever there's development happening, it's good for affordable housing. It's good for the people at the bottom of the barrel because somebody's moving into that higher priced property from a lower priced property. So, I think any type of development is good for affordable housing. It's good for those who are at the lower end of it. That's just the way the real estate market goes. So I hope people understand that, when a higher priced property is developed or a higher price subdivision is developed, somebody's moving up to that house from somewhere else, and again, the space gets made that somebody in the lower real estate market moves into. So, yeah, I'm as you can see, I'm in favor of slow, steady growth of development of Orangeville. We've got a limited footprint here, and so we have to be very careful about how we develop, but a lot of the planning decisions have already been made by councils and planners in the past. I mean, our zoning bylaws and our official plan are set. We're in an official plan review right now, so we can manipulate some things, but we don't have a lot of land left, and a lot of it's already been zoned in a certain way. So we just need to develop it in such a way that it helps our economy. Whenever we have these developments happening, there's a supply of materials and labor, a lot of it local, so it's good for the economy, generally speaking. Residential home building is excellent. So, there's a lot of good and positive things about development, and I can tell you, if you're in the town of Orangeville and you have a vacant lot beside you, it's likely, unless it's owned by the town, it's going to be developed. You have to understand that we're in an urban center, and that's just, it's going to happen, and you have to accept that.
We all probably want it, but not in my backyard.
Right. So, and you know, if a developer has land that's zoned in a particular way, they have property rights just like a residential property owner has property rights. And, you know, the town council can't take away those property rights. So when all of the boxes are ticked, all of the, you know, necessary consultations are done, you know, we have to let development move forward in a positive way, and it will help. You know, the supply of new residential units will help the housing crisis. I strongly believe that.
And with your background in real estate, during your term, did Orangeville ever consider land acquisition to expand the land?
Well, I mean, that's going to be, you know, I think that's something that's going to happen.
I would like your candid opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, suburban Orangeville has a lot of residential in its immediate environs. The property tax payments are going to other municipalities, and yet the amenities are being paid for by Orangeville residents. So, you know, if the boundaries of Orangeville get expanded, it's probably going to be a good thing for Orangeville. Some of the other, you know, smaller municipalities, if that happened, they would eventually lose some of that tax base. So there would be some adjustments there. But, you know, it's going to happen. The province is going to have to deal with it down the road. We are just about built out as a town now, and I think we need more industrial land within the town of Orangeville. The only way to do that is to expand the boundaries and to rezone some land that has not been zoned yet, and yeah, it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be the next council term, but it's somewhere in the near future. I think the boundaries of Orangeville will likely grow.
So when we talk about collaboration, and if something like that were to happen, what is your take on that, or what would be your recommendation?
Well, Sandy and I have talked about certain projects that border along us, but the biggest challenge is it's greenbelt, so you're limited. You just can't do anything. Things will change, not probably in our lifetime, but who knows what will happen. But I think that's something why we have to be extremely important to understand that you need industrial commercial development. A 60-40 ratio would be really good. Caledon, you know, a lot of times we've tried to get up, you know, our employment ratios, you know, got up maybe 22, 23%, slides back to 20 when you get bigger housing development. Residential development does not pay the freight for the taxes and everything that's going on. It does not pay. You have to, your cost benefit is that employment commercial, your industrial buildings, your business parks. That's what brings in the revenue. When you get big subdivisions and everything coming in, you're automatically starting to run a deficit because of, you know, you got to, through the Municipal Act, you got to provide a certain amount of recreation, a certain amount of everything, and you know, fire, ambulance, everything. So residential just doesn't pay. So if people are complaining about their taxes, if they were really paying, you know, if they're paying their fair cost, you can do it. That's how, like Toronto, their housing taxes are way low. It's because they've had all that big business commercial down in the downtown core. Now they're switching to condos. Well, condos don't pay like the big the business offices have, and COVID's changed that. But I think you're going to see a huge mind shift going forward. But the industrial users, when they come in, they know that they're help contributing, giving back to the community through the tax base. They know that, especially on the education side. The biggest contributor isn't coming from the homes; it's coming from the industrial side of the tax base. So those are big players. Even agriculture, you know, the tax base on that is about, you know, half compared to what the, you know, your upper tier and lower tier get the other piece. So I think people don't really realize that there's huge costs that come to balance in a municipality, and anybody that's running for council. I applaud anybody that's signed themselves up to run a campaign. God bless them. You don't have to agree with their philosophies coming in, but at least they're willing to they have the courage to stand, to take a position. But getting in there, I'll tell you, once you swear the oath, you're now part of the institution. And to me, any advice for any new councillor is, get in to learn how the municipality works, learn the municipal act, understand what your role is, and then use what you know to work for your residents. And that's something that I got to say, over 19 years I've learned to do, and through the advice of a former CEO that sat me down and said, I'm watching you're coming in here, you're trying to do this and this, and he says, you know, I think you have a bright future, but you got to learn to understand how the municipal act works, how municipalities operate, and then once you understand how to work that for the benefit of your residents and your businesses and your municipality. And I took that to heart, and it's been very successful for me. But that's any advice I can give any elected official going forward. Sandy's, found that too. It's just to, he came in as mayor, but it's to learn to understand what your role is. Much different than out in the business world, being a businessman coming in and understanding how, you got to understand the box, how to work that box, where the gray areas, where you can push a little bit to get where you need to go, and that's what you got to do. You got, if you want to make a difference for your community, that's how you have to operate.
So when we talk about these qualifications and these experiences and the knowledge of candidates, so let's talk a little bit about that. What is your take when we compare the terms for the two candidates running for mayor in Caledon? Jennifer Innes, 8 years in council, 2 terms, versus Annette Groves running for mayor, almost 22 years in the council. So how do you go with that, and where exactly do you put that on that whole geography of this campaign?
Yeah, and two is I've watched the campaigns rather closely. What was concerning me was with the veteran is coming out campaign with partial truths is not good. To me, is one thing that Sandy and I have learned as mayor. You no longer have a voice or an opinion. You now speak on behalf of the corporation because you're the CEO, and you have to be truthful on everything you do. And if you don't, my gosh, you're going to call back, or you'll be called out on it. And you've seen mayors where they haven't been truthful or forthright, and it's been detrimental to the municipality as well as themselves. So I think that's the concerning going forward. They both bring two different experiences.
Yes.
One is, I say they're both been seasoned veterans. Councilor Innes has also been chair of the TRCA this last term of her tenure. But I have to say that it's the skill sets that you have to look at. Who can work with council, or are they a good collaborator with council, or are they a lone wolf? What have they been able to bring forward, and what they've been able to accomplish, and what their achievements are, and how well are they. One thing is Sandy and I both learned is you got to work with all levels of government.
Yes.
You got to work at the region. You got to work with the province. You got to work with the federal government. You got to build those relationships, and that's something I think I've learned over the 19 years, and Sandy's learned as well. That once you start to build that good rapport, that's important for you to be able to move things forward for your residents as well. And it's the skill sets that you bring, and you got to be a leader, and you got to be a courageous one, and you got to be prepared to stand up, and sometimes you have to say, no folks, this is the reason why we have to do it. You got to be truthful. Giving people false hope is the most dangerous thing you can possibly do to anybody.
So when we talk about, half-truth and false hope, I've been following these candidates' profiles as well, and then on their social media, I did notice there's a whole controversy going on, and it's like a war zone about a specific vote that happened at the regional. So what exactly happened there? What is the whole truth? Well, it's like both the sides are presenting half the truth, and nobody is aware.
So which one are we talking about? They're all there. It's I know, and to me, I think the third parties that have got in, I don't believe third parties should be allowed in municipal politics. This isn't political party system. These are you run as an independent. You're elected. To me, when I'm elected as mayor, it's the most humbling experience. I think Sandy will agree that people put faith in you to lead the municipality. They've also appointed you 8 or number of members or 6 members of council who you have to work with. You have to work with all of them. You don't have to like them, but you got to work with everybody. And that's the important thing. And when you talk about the votes at the table, all I was just saying is where it was saying, oh, well, I stated to vote no. where I was going and what really happened is it was when we lost our 2 seats.
Yes.
The motion was walked on at the very last of the council meeting. It was a walk-on. What I asked, my only option I have, when I only have 5 votes at the table against the rest of Brampton, Mississauga at that point, I'm saying, look guys, let's walk out. It shuts the meeting down. Some say, well, that's inevitable. But what it does is it allows us to go back to talk to the rest of our council members, half of them are not at the regional table, talk to our staff, get a legal opinion, but also talk to our residents. To me, if you want to be open and transparent, there was no discussion. Public didn't know, we as councillors did not know that this motion was being walked on. So it allows, yes, so in 2 weeks, when we come back to regional council, it's the first thing on the agenda. But at least we're prepared. Maybe try to find some negotiations to figure out how to move forward. We lost that whole opportunity when one councillor sat in. They kept the meeting going. Oh, I voted no, but what you did is you took away our ability to come back and consult with our community and know what happened. A lot of people didn't know until they were voting in the election. How come we only got 3 councillors and not 5? We've always had 5 councillors, right? So it's, and when the region appeal was formed in 1974, the reason why we got 5 is because we were 5 municipalities. So basically it was just 1 from each municipality had a seat at the table. York region was a little bit bigger and so was Halton, but they downsized us to 3 major municipalities in the region appeal. And Caledon's 56% of the Massam region appeal, so we're big. But we have a lot of environmental features. All the headwaters for TRCA, Nottawasaga, and Credit Valley all start in Caledon. So it's very important that we, even the environment has a voice. Right. So, that's how the vote went. Well, I stayed and I voted and whatever. The bottom line is I don't even know why she even brought it up, that particular candidate. It was something like that. You should have just kept quiet. But anyway, it got out there. And so, yes, I did put out a blog to clarify because residents were asking. So, sometimes it's to know the whole story when you only take part of a story or cherry pick something out of a council report. Like one, it was saying we had a 5% tax increase. Well, yeah, that's what it was when we sat down to open the budgets. But that's never what the final number is. That's what staff bring to you, and then we will chisel it down to I think it was a 2.2. So, but it sounds great when you're, this is the report card we're putting out. Well, no, it's not fully factual. So, to me, that's why I say third-party advertising does not belong in municipal politics.
Right.
When it's a party system and you're run provincially, federally, fine. Personally, I wouldn't have it at all. To me, is let the public decide, be out there. But to me, there's just too much what I call white noise that's getting in the way of allowing people to giving them the right facts on the right information.
Right. Thank you, Ellen. I really appreciate you opening up, very candidly about this issue and this topic and bringing forth whatever actually was the true story. Yeah. And that vote, 1 no, reminded me of another vote, 1 no, in Orangeville Council as well. This is to do with Orangeville Police Service versus OPP. Right. That 1 no vote. What exactly happened there? And how certain candidates decide that 1 no is going to be fruitful. So what is your take on that? And I would appreciate your very, very, very frank opinion on that as well.
Well, sitting through the presentations from our CAO, who did a very in-depth study on it, the treasurer of Orangeville, and also the consultant that was hired to lay out the financial ramifications, but then to also look at the opportunities for uniformed officers, which has come to pass. There's been so many more opportunities for uniformed officers of Orangeville Police Service to take up other duties and to move up in the hierarchy within OPP. So it really has been a win-win-win all around. And for me, again, I've said to many people, it's been the easiest decision that I've ever made in my life was to take that OPP decision. The only councillor that voted no was Councilor Taylor. He's claimed some close relationship with Chief Kalinsky and others on the Police Services Board in the past. So,
wow.
Again, if we go back into 2017, we had Councilor Gail Campbell say, well, I promised them. You know, this is what she said. She promised who? 42 people versus 30,000? I mean, you know, so you really don't know until you get inside the mind of the individual councillor.
But you know what? I'm going to interrupt you here briefly, because I feel like we're going to have a longer conversation on this topic, and we have some updates coming in from Radina. Let's hear it from her, and then we're going to pick up where we left right away. Over to you, Radina.
Great, thank you. So we have 6 of the 10 voting locations reporting in. Again, these are the unofficial numbers for Orangeville. Keeps updating right in front of me, and we're going to try to freeze it, I believe, on the screen, but just to go over the numbers again, we have Lisa Post with 2,158. We have, there we go, there's the numbers, great. We have Jeffrey Patterson, 1,242. Jeremy Williams, 574. Kim Reed, 197. For Deputy Mayor, we have Todd Taylor with 3,336 of the votes. Trevor Castelloni with 708. And then for the councillors, our top 5 right now are Debbie Sherwood with 2,743 votes, followed by Joe Andrews with 2,578 votes, Andy McIntosh with 2,488 votes, Tess Prendergast with 2,084 votes, and Rick Stevens with 1,666 of the votes. And that's what's happening in Orangeville. We're still waiting to get more results in. We have a few results coming in for Caledon, which we're just going to wrap up and get those numbers together for you. And then we have a few numbers for Mono that have just come in, which you can see on the screen coming up. So just keep watching the rotating screen. It rotates within the municipality. So back to you, Simran, and we'll be back with some Caledon numbers.
Thank you, Radina. Wow. Looks like a few of these candidates have picked up pace there with the votes, and it's going to be a really interesting result tonight, I have a feeling, and not something that most of us must have expected, at least. I do see some previous former council candidates as well picking up a lead there, and that's going to be a really surprising result if that were to materialize. But now, with that, going back to the same topic of we discussing how that one no impacts residents' opinion as well, and what would be that logic behind one person taking a stance on such a critical decision. And even now, you notice, like during these election months and campaign months, people and candidates have been bringing this up again and again. So what is your take on that, and how do you justify that decision? Because you were the one who went with that topic on your campaign.
You know, certain councillors have allegiances, right? And if they feel deeply about a particular topic, they will vote no. It's not unusual for a rogue councillor to vote no against any topic, and we've had it happen. You know, I'm sure Mayor Thompson has had that happen as well. And you really, you know, you'd have to really get the take of that particular councillor. As I said before, 6 of 7 voted yes. We see no reason to not believe that that decision was one of the best decisions that was ever made by council in the town of Orangeville. As I said, it's been a win-win-win. It's a financial win for the town. The service level is up, and the uniformed officers have had much more and better opportunities. The morale is up. So, you know, that's the proof is in the pudding right there.
Yes, so. I did go through some information related to that on the town's website as well. The numbers are up there. But how would you exactly put those numbers in terms of, because people are still not seeing those finances and those profits coming in, as we can put it through?
Well, I just looked at town of Caledon's budget for 2022, and I looked at the town of Collingwood's budget for 2022. As I said earlier tonight, I relied on those 2 municipalities to help me form my thoughts about us moving to OPP. And I think Caledon was in the range of $179 per capita. I know you can look at these things many different ways. Collingwood, I think, was $209 per capita. So when you apply, say, let's say $200 per capita to Orangeville, we've got, you know, 30,000 and change. We're in the $6 million to $6.2 million range. Orangeville Police Service budget was over $10 million. So it seems pretty clear that you know, our municipalities are probably demographically quite similar. You know, there are some northern communities that have different demographic. The crime rate is actually higher in certain municipalities. Even in central Ontario, there's some municipalities whose crime statistics are different than Collingwood, Caledon, and Orangeville. But we're kind of in the same. So that means to me that when we drop into the new billing model, which is going to happen in October of 2023, that we're going to be in the same ballpark in terms of the costing of our OPP police service as Caledon has had and Collingwood. So I'm very confident that we're going to save significant money next year and for many years to come.
And with that decision, it was a really tough one because we found you in the middle of a lot of controversy going on.
Okay.
And I would love to hear something related to that as well. Like, is everything gone away from you, like now that you are outgoing?
Well, you know, we get, you know, the bar is very low for somebody to make a complaint to an integrity commissioner, for instance, on certain things. I mean, I was taken to the integrity commissioner over vaccine mandate issues, over you know, comments about you know, public health issues, you know, and about policing, and people were very, very passionate about their, you know, the side that they were taking in that particular debate, and you know, the social media world today, there's a lot of negative rhetoric and hateful, vitriolic rhetoric that is brought out there. So, you know, I've looked back over my last 4 years, and really there's not very much that I would change in terms of my commentary or social media posts or anything else. I think when you lead, sometimes if you're not, you know, disturbing the you know what, you're not doing anything. You know, if you can accept the status quo and roll and just show up.
Change is uncomfortable.
Change is uncomfortable, and you know, Mayor Thompson and I have both run into a headwind sometimes, and I think you'll find if you're not prepared to get into those fights, not a lot happens. You know, so you want to make substantial differences and change, which we have in the last 4 years. Sometimes you have to put up with and get into a couple of scraps.
But you got it done.
Yeah, of course we did. And as I said, I'm satisfied with how it was handled, and I'm happy with our council. I think we came out, you know, we did a good job for 4 years.
It had been an election issue for the past at least 2 to 3 terms, right? Mm-hmm. So definitely, I'm glad that at least it has been put to rest, and now hopefully we will see those numbers going up.
Mayor Thompson talked about collaboration and about there's a skill set there, right? There's no, you know, ability to lead people and to help convince people on certain topics in a kind and collaborative way. Some people have that skill and some people don't, you know, so you hope that you pick your leaders accordingly, and that they are able to lead by example and lead, you know, the conversation and do the right thing for your municipality.
Thank you, Sandy.
The one thing I will say too is there's nothing wrong with a councillor voting against the rest of the council, because there's sometimes there's an issue, or there's an issue that's sitting in their own ward or who they're representing. And that's what it is. It's not a party system. This is the nice thing I love about municipal politics. And sometimes there are some tough issues that are coming through in the community, but the staff report said, no, we need to move forward for it. Well, it really puts this one particular individual. Well, let him vote no. Let him vote for his residents, stand up for it. The vote will still pass through, but at least he fought for his community. And to me, that's the individualism. So when there's somebody that votes against, at least they voted. When they abstain, that's a lost vote.
But it still needs a lot of guts.
It does.
Right?
You got to have courage. And to me, you have to be courageous to be a councillor or a mayor, because you got to make those really hard calls that people are not going to be happy about. And Sandy and I both know we've made some unpopular ones because it's the right thing to do, and especially COVID. We've had to really, on the lockdowns and the shutdowns and different things, we had to do what was good for the community, even though you were hurting a lot of businesses, the hairdressers, the barbershops, the restaurants, you know, a lot of people, and they're on really tight margins. And it was, you know, my heart went out for them, but we knew we had to do because it was the right thing to do. And some people just couldn't do it. Some were having nervous breakdowns. You've got to have the courage to make those, to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's sometimes the system leads us into decisions that aren't good for the long term. You know, we have a 4-year term, and if you as an elected official, if you can't look past 4 years and what is the best for the very long term, sometimes the best decision doesn't get made because you're looking at being elected next time. You're looking at what's you know, the expedient thing, or the tax increase is going to hurt today, but the residents 10 years from now are going to reap the benefit of these decisions. And so it's partly the system of 4-year terms is problematic in some cases. You know, we've made some long-term decisions that I see people criticizing us about, but they don't realize that we've been given the information that by making that decision, that money's actually going to come back. It's going to be 15, 20 years down the road, but the balance at the end of the term of that period, long period of time, is going to be in favor of the resident and the taxpayer. And those decisions sometimes are difficult to bite and to take on.
I always say, so like the Fram oil filter, pay me now or pay me later. And you know, to me is when you're making those decisions, Sandy's quite right. You got to think for your children and their grandchildren. And you got to make those right decisions. And if you're there to make the betterment for the community, you have to do that. And people will be upset over, well, this is what is affecting me now. Yes, long term, it's the right thing to do. You know, it's and business decisions you've had to do. You always had to look ahead. It isn't about getting through the year. It's always you're looking 10 years out to know where you want to go.
So when we are talking about these unpopular decisions,
yes,
and social media. So I came across a post yesterday on your platform on social media declaring your support for one of the mayoral candidates.
That's right.
So help us with some information to do with that. Well, that must have been quite a tough one.
You know, I know them both, and they're both good people. But to me, as Sandy will understand also well, to be a mayor, it isn't just the thrill of having the title and walking around with it. You carry a huge responsibility, and to me is you got to make sure you have the skill sets. And to me is one is definitely got the leadership skill sets to do it. And what made me make the decision is when I saw the partial mistruths coming out from a particular candidate, especially in their own material, and I'm saying seriously, you know, now you're starting to run a campaign, and I'm watching where the expenses were going, and you know, we're all on tight budgets, and I'm watching where it's going. I thought, I want a mayor that I know I can trust. And that's why I voted the way I did. I supported Jennifer Innes because I felt she's the one that is the most credible leader to do the job. And to me, this is a job that isn't taken lightly. To be as a mayor, I'm going to tell you, you put that chain of office, the whole history when they put the chain of office on a mayor, that came from the Magna Carta back in 1215. Actually, it was about 1220 when Archbishop of Canterbury went to they had developed the House of the Lords and the House of the Commons, which is for the common people. But the villages and the small community said, hey, what about us? We deserve to have a voice. So what he did was he took a community leader and they put a steel chain around their neck and saying, you now carry the burden to the crown for your people. That's what the role of a mayor is. That's what that chain of office is. It looks pretty now, but it isn't a big heavy chain. But it is. You carry the burden. You celebrate the successes. When things go wrong, you wear it. You're the CEO. Things go wrong, right, Sandy? The buck stops with us. You wear it. You can't deflect it. Oh, it's somebody else's fault. You own it. So if you want somebody through the good times and the bad that can wear that chain of office, that you know that can be trusted and can be relied on, but also to work with council to be able to get things done. And that's the skill set. And the one Jennifer Innes definitely has the skill sets much stronger than the other individual, and that's the reason why I did come out and endorse on the weekend.
But do you think her being elected in that position and her alliance with one of the political parties at the federal and provincial level, would it have any impact on her making the kind of decisions she might potentially make in that role?
I hope not, and I don't think she has. I think she's done quite well. I think she stood up to the provincial government. Yes, she's been known to be a loyal PC, but she's taken some real strong stance against the provincial government, but in a respectful way, to find ways fighting for conservation, giving that voice. You know, lobbied extremely hard along with other conservation authorities. Originally, they were going to gut the fish, and you know, like they were going to gut them. They came back and found a compromise. Well, I'm going to tell you, she worked very hard at that table to make that happen. So, yeah, you know, your political affiliates to me is you shouldn't be showing your colors when you're a mayor, because you've got to work with all levels of government. You've got to be respectful. But on the other hand, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of affiliate to know how the systems work, to know how to work to get what you need for your municipality as well. But I do believe that even though she's affiliated with a party, I do believe that she loves Caledon, and you know, and that's the one thing I'm going to find hard giving up, because it's for the last 19 years I wanted to make a difference for my community, and I think if you talk about my social media, you can see it's all about Caledon. I always talk about Caledon. Caledon's my home. It's, you know, our family homesteaded in the area, you know, back in the 1820s, and you know, that's over 200 years, but we're not going anywhere. We're staying here. I think it's the most beautiful area in the world is right here, and we're so blessed to live where we are. But to me, that's been my, you know, forcept, and that's what I'm trying to say is I want to make sure when someone falling behind me has the same love and passion and can be honest with everybody.
So when you talk about focus on Caledon, and I do hear and see this theme going on social media again, that people claiming that Annette Groves has more focus on Bolton and Jennifer Innes has more focus on the Caledon aspect. So what is your take on that balance?
Well, Annette knows Bolton quite well. You know, she and I went against each other for all-day parking, but I think it paid off. You know, we got 11 businesses opened up and everything's worked well. But that's difference of opinion. I hold nothing against her for that. That's where she, you know, if a councillor makes an opinion, I always respect it. As long as they respect me, this is where it goes, and that's how we get there. Yeah, you know what?
But do you see that inclination clearly in each of these candidates towards one part?
Yeah, I think Jennifer loves all of Caledon. You know, if Annette becomes mayor, she's going to have to learn really quick to learn about the rest of Caledon. I think her as a candidate is forced her to get out and to see what all of Caledon's about. And I think it's good for all of the candidates to get out and learn. I think, I got to tell you, every election, I enjoy knocking on the doors and talking to people and hearing what people have to say. The night I won the first time as mayor back in 2014, I got up and I said, I've heard at every door that everybody's talking about broadband. So you know what, hell or high water, we're going to find a solution to the broadband issue. That wasn't in my campaign literature. My wife, I think, was shocked and said, where the heck did that come from? But it is what I heard at the door. It didn't matter from one side to the other. Any other time I've knocked on doors in my previous elections, the previous three, it was always about seniors. There's just no place, we want to stay in Caledon, there's no place for us to go, that we can afford to stay and live. That was the number one issue. But it's always roads, potholes, that's always ditches. That's always the ongoing thing. But those are the issues that I really found across Caledon, and I hope as candidates they were listening to what they were hearing at the door. You know, it's great to shove your philosophy, but what I always find is, what is it that I'm missing? What is it I don't know? And that's what I really always enjoyed. And to me is, you're never, as mayor, you're never done campaigning. You're always out there all the time listening and learning, meeting with business people across the town.
The whole term is like a campaign. You're presenting and you're buying into your platform.
It is. And, you know, you know, it's just the way they put out the mandates. And to me, it's, it's one ran a really good, clean campaign, and that's why I'm supporting.
Okay, fair enough. So now, I'm sure you are following Ennett's as well as Innes' campaigns, right? So I just wanted like some balanced approach here so that it doesn't seem like this whole conversation is getting inclined towards one candidate versus another.
That's right.
Right? So when I see and hear these updates with the numbers from Radina, and she just clearly shared that, Annette Groves is in lead.
Yes.
So what do you think is getting her those votes?
Oh, well, I can tell you there was a third party that, it has, again, partial truths out there, a report card. And I think generally the public, whenever they see, that comes out, it's got to be true. One thing I've always believed in is if you're just finding it out in the last 2 weeks of a campaign, all this smearing stuff that starts to come out, it's just coming out now, there's probably not much truth to it. But I think, too, right now, a lot of people are so engaged, they do not know what we're really doing. They're not reading the paper anymore. We do not have like a full newscast. Thank you for Rogers doing what you're doing, but we're starting to get streaming at the council chambers, but we need to get more of that out for people to really know. The social media picks up the dark side of things, where it's tough to, but when you start, and people are angry. I've really seen that in the federal election, in the provincial election, the nastiness and the anger, and it's come out here. And it isn't just here, it's everywhere. I've talked to mayors across Ontario that I built relationships with, that I got to know, and they said we've never seen the nastiness, the anger, and the misinformation that's getting out there. I almost call it the Trump effect. He's created that permission that it's okay to lie and say whatever you want, but the issue is I think is the hard realities is, this is the people that you're going to have your trust in for the next 4 years, and this is what's very, very important.
Right.
Thank you. So with that going on about social media and the negative impacts, I will come back to you, Sandy, and I would want to hear your take on that, because you felt that burnt as well during your campaign and after that as well. So, but now, before that, I would love to hear some more updates from Radina and see how the election results are going.
Well, we're almost in the final stretch here in Orangeville. 9 of the 10 voting locations have reported in. So again, these are the unofficial numbers for Orangeville. So for the mayor, we have Lisa Post at 2,571, Jeffrey Patterson at 1,482, Jeremy Williams at 708, Kim Reed at 245. Our Deputy Mayor, Todd Taylor, has pulled ahead at 4,005 votes against Trevor Castiglione at 860. Our 5 top councillors at the moment, the same 5 still lead. Debbie Sherwood is in the lead with 3,282. Joe Andrews with 3,026. Andy McIntosh with 2,940. Tess Pendergast at 2,489, and Rick Stevens with 1,989. So those are the numbers, the unofficial numbers for Orangeville. We just have one more voting location to report in, but as you can see, it's almost pretty clear. We're going to have a new mayor here this evening for the town of Orangeville, and we also will have a new mayor coming up for the town of Caledon. So I'm going to go back to you, Simran. We're just working out our Caledon interview and our Caledon numbers.
Thank you, Radina. Hello, Jennifer. This is Simran here from the election night for Dufferin County. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and we were in conversation with Ellen Thompson and going about some of the things to do with your campaign and how the campaign went, and I must commend you on running a really good campaign. I would like to hear from you, what would be your message to the residents and your supporters?
Just a big thank you to my supporters and my campaign team who ran a very clean, honest, and good Caledon campaign that reflected Caledon's character and identity. I've always said, I echo the words of Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. And I just want to thank my supporters for continuing that through social media and while they were out door knocking and in print media. It was important to me that this campaign be based on my proven track record and my plan for Caledon. So, while the Caledon residents did not put their trust in me for this election, I wish the council-elect team the very best. They have a big challenge coming ahead of them in the next 4 years with the town's official plan. And I will be actively involved as a resident, advocating for the needs of my community as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I would like to ask if Ellen has a few words to say to you.
Jennifer, I got to say, I'm very proud of you. You ran a really good, clean campaign, above board, and very proud. That's what Caledon is, and you're a prime example of how it should be done. So, good job. Sorry it didn't work out for you, but thank you for doing the right thing.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you
And
so-
thank you for his amazing service to our community.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I wish you all the best for whatever your future endeavors are, and I hope you get some much-deserved time with your family after this busy campaign.
Thank you, Simran. Take care.
Take care. So this was Jennifer Innes, one of the mayoral candidates for Caledon. And in conversation, we were talking about this, how this whole campaign is panning out, and how, Annette was in the lead and she is still in the lead. So what exactly are your feelings right now?
Well, Annette won the campaign. I got to say, as I said, I thank Jennifer for running a clean campaign. And you know what? I'll do my utmost to make the transition as smooth as I can for Annette Groves to be the next mayor. And you know what? She's got a huge responsibility, and you know what? She's got her work cut out for her. But I wish her the best of luck, because Caledon really needs her to do a really good job.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now, Sandy, before we went and did that update with Radina, we were talking about what social media could do, and here Alan was talking about that, and he said, social media can have that impact, that whatever the information is coming up on Facebook, Instagram, that must be true. So social media has replaced newspaper, and I've read people writing, I've done my research, and the research is based on maybe social media, right? So what is your take on that, and what have you experienced in the last 4 years?
Well, we do know that a lot of things that are on social media are not correct, and that people's opinions are sometimes formed by what they see on social media, which is unfortunate, because in most cases, if you dig a little deeper, you spend a little bit of time, challenging a particular comment, or you can usually find the truth if you want to look for it. There are some people that want to be influenced in a particular way, and so they are. But social media, when I first became aware of it, Facebook was a place, sort of a happy place, where grandparents would connect with their grandchildren. It might be away at university, whatever, but it's really evolved into a place of evil, in my opinion. And I'm going to be using it in a limited way going forward in my life, because it's a place where there's more negativity, that I see more negativity than positivity in it. And so why would you want to continue to delve into that? So, I'll be tapping in on my phone every once in a while, but to not the same extent, obviously, as I was as a council.
Yeah, I see your
candidate.
enthusiasm to use social media has gone down.
Well, I think what I want to use it for is for positivity in going forward. And when you get into these skirmishes on social media, Jennifer mentioned, when they go they go low, we go high. We need to take that to heart, right? And steer clear of these kind of...
But I have to ask you a tough one here.
Yeah.
When you say they go low, we go high, but during your campaign, remember how it was tagged as a smear campaign against another mayoral candidate, and you did post quite a bit of negative stuff. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, that's fair enough, Simran. I mean, you're talking about the Williams, post back in the day, but again, my thoughts were, the mayor's got to hold themselves to a higher standard, right? Than the average, your average neighbor you would expect. And so I was pointing out the fact that didn't seem to be the case. And so, I was criticized roundly by friends of mine as well. And so I learned a lesson, and I think you have to be careful when you get into that the negative, mindset. But I was shocked when I saw it, and so I shared it. And but in hindsight, probably today, knowing what I know today, I probably would have let that slide. And work on other.
That's pretty understandable.
More positive things. I think what the public wants to know is, what are you going to do, right? What is your plan? How are you going to make things better, rather than trying to tear down the past? Yeah. And so we're evolving. I'm evolving as a person. Everybody is, I think, and.
None of us are perfect.
So nobody's perfect. But again, I wanted to take a minute here to thank town staff, particularly our CAO, Ed Brennan, who's off on a medical leave. But Ed, if you think about what a CAO does, it's an important position. It's the number one administrative role in the town, and they have a busy time. In the case of our CAO, layered on top of that was the OPP transition, which the CAO was deeply involved in. Layer on top of that the real estate transaction of the railway, which our CAO was deeply involved in. And then layer on top of that the pandemic.
Yes.
With the chaos and the start and the stop and the trying to satisfy council, trying to satisfy staff, it really was a difficult time, and they didn't get paid any more money.
Yes.
Without those three things in the town of Orangeville, the CAO's job is still a full-time job, and then some. So, again, hats off to Ed, hats off to town staff who educated 7 newbies. It's quite unusual for 7 new councillors to be dropped into a municipality as they were here. But I think we rolled with the punches, we learned a lot. We've got, it looks like clearly 5 the 5 candidates who did not, who decided to run in Orangeville now are all going to be elected. It certainly appears that way. So congratulations to all of them. That means that they learned and they've done a good job, and that the electorate respects them and wants to see more of the same. And why not? We did have a respectful council term. We did have a lot of good things that happened, and I'm really hopeful that there's going to be more of the same going forward.
So when Alan spoke so candidly about, who he was supporting as a mayoral candidate, here, what is your take looking at these numbers here? Are you shocked or surprised to see any of the numbers, or how did you expect it to span out?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'd said this to many people. I thought this was going to come down to Post and Patterson as mayoralty candidates. I think Patterson presented himself a little bit right of center. Post presented a little bit left of center. I wasn't sure how this was going to run. Lisa was a good councillor. She ran a good campaign. She had a lot of social media involvement, and it certainly appears as if she's got a lock here on the mayor's job, which is good. And congratulations to her. But I didn't come out, endorsing anybody because I just decided not to, and I'm glad I didn't, but I don't know whether my endorsement would have swung anything one way or another anyway. So, the residents...
It could have had an impact.
Well,
I think maybe Ellen has that thought now.
Yeah.
Maybe if he did this post like a few days ago, maybe it would have made some substantial change. And we always, have that second thought. We continue to second guess our decisions.
But the electorate, it's amazing how the electorate does get it right sometimes, and you kind of have to hope that they made the right decision. Again, it's not the decision that Alan wanted to see in Caledon, but here again, I'm happy that the 5 surviving councillors have earned their jobs. They earned them because they did a good job, and the residents of Orangeville were perceptive and saw that they did a good job, and they'll carry on. The 2 new council candidates here are people that I thought were going to rise to the top in that group. So good on them. Yeah.
So when we are talking about candidates, and you clearly said that you felt and you knew all along that it will come down to these two candidates, Jeff Patterson and Lisa Post, and you've completely written down two of the other candidates. So what are those specific qualifications or criteria that you had in your mind when you thought that?
Well, Lisa now has 4 years under her belt as a council candidate.
But so does Jeremy Williams too, more than that.
Well, I know, but I ran because I thought that there could be a better way for council to collaborate and move the business of the town forward. And we proved it. This council that is now about to change did that. My thoughts were it could be done better, and if your personality is such that collaboration is difficult for you, then you can't advance things well. And so, I saw in Post and Patterson that ability to collaborate. Patterson's had a lot of business experience, so he did rise above, in my mind, above the other two candidates, other than Post, and we've seen the previous story. We already saw what happened in the previous council session, and I think that is the reason that I ran. It's the reason that we had now a change in the respect and the decorum within the council chambers here in Orangeville. And I said, I said earlier, the 5 councillors that now have survived and will be moving on will be taking that same demeanor and decorum forward, which is a good thing for the town. And I'm quite certain that the new 2 councillors will also. This will be a good council. It absolutely will be.
I absolutely look forward to that.
Yeah.
So over to you, Ellen, now that we were talking about the previous council and how the collaboration didn't work according to Sandy. So you have worked with the previous council. How was that for you, and what would have happened if, let's say, we still don't have the final results in, but let's say if Jeremy Williams to get re-elected, how would that impact your inclination towards the politics and the collaboration between Orangeville and Caledon going forward?
I did have a relationship that I did build with Jeremy, but again, the challenges with he had with council, we no matter what he tried to do, couldn't get anything accomplished to where we needed to work together. Where I got to tell you, I've been blessed with 2 great councils. I really have. I've been able to
compared to the one that Jeremy had to go through.
Yeah, so to me, I was very lucky, and to me, so when we were able to, because I talked to Jeremy, we talked about the Orangeville Railway and many different things, but I got to tell you, when you have a council that can respect one another, and under Sandy's watch, that worked very well. We were able to get a lot of things accomplished and get things underway. So to me, I think that's a positive. Here, to me, is I'm looking at the results coming into Caledon. My returning councillors, they're running for their seats, look like they're going to be successful. And again, I think it's with Sandy, it's a testament to the fine job that they've done. And so to me, that is a good thing. It's good to see them all hopefully get returned. The numbers are sitting pretty hard here, so if Innes and Groves are done, I'm sure these are pretty close. But these councillors have worked extremely hard, and they've earned their right to go back, and it's good to see that the public's throwing it in. I see some other good people that have put their names forward and have done a terrific job, so it's good. Yeah.
Thank you. So
and as much as you talk about Annette Groves, she'll do fine as a mayor, and the reason being is she's got a great council to work with. And you're only one vote.
Yes.
Your job is to be the leader and to drive that forward and build that relationship. And one thing I've sometimes some mayors like to come in and control and hold everybody down, where I have always believe empower everybody and it makes you better. And it's a tactic that some people say a little scary. You get people undermining you. But you know, I disagree. To me, is that it's when you empower your council, they get excited about a lot of issues, moving things forward, and that's how you get a lot of things done. You can't do it all yourself. It's, you know, when I say we did get a lot of stuff done, I say the word we because it's council. Yes, I'm the head of council. I take the credit, but it's my council working together to help us get all the accomplishments that we've been able to accomplish. So, yeah.
So you have worked with Dennis for a number of
Yes.
years now, and what do you feel like her alliance with Lisa, how is that going to span out in the coming years? Do you think they are going to enjoy the same kind of collaboration that you and Sandy enjoyed?
I hope so. So, you know, I hope Lisa and Annette Groves work well going forward. And you know, it's up to them to make it work. And I think Sandy and I have definitely broke down those barriers, and I think we've got a great relationship between our staffs. And I think that's extremely important. And you know, and that's what I've always tried to do is, you know, the same way I have with York and in Halton, and you know, and all our neighboring municipalities. We're only as good as the good relationships we build all around us. Same with Erin. You know, we've been able to get a box. You know, Alan Olds and I got box culvert, my gosh, 13 years to get in, and we got it in the last term, but it was just a matter of just pushing forward and, you know, telling the province to stuff it. We need to get this in. You know, culvert I think was 691,000 and the studies were about 1.2.
Oh my goodness.
You know, ridiculous. You know, and it's a single lane bridge. We put in a double lane bridge. Like really, at the end of the day, it works fine. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Ellen. So we will continue on with that discussion. And right now, I feel we have a guest with Radina as well. So over to you, Radina. Let's hear from the guest and you.
Thanks, Simran. So we have our successful candidate for councillor position of Orangeville. We have Debbie Sherwood joining us right now live in this studio. Congratulations.
Thank you, Radina. Thank you so much for having me tonight. And I just want to thank all the residents in Orangeville for having the confidence in me and re-electing me. I'm very honored.
Well, look at those numbers. You came first out of all of the councillors. I think it's over 3,000 votes that you secured.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, were you surprised by that?
I was surprised, but to tell you the truth, Radina, it wasn't where I placed in the position. As long as I garnished one of the 5 seats, that's all that mattered to me. I'm still only 1 vote, and I am so thrilled to work with these amazing group of individuals that is going to make up another phenomenal council.
So tell me a little bit about your thoughts when you were out there campaigning. What were some of the things that seemed to be the biggest issues from the voters? What were they telling you?
Well, as always, taxes are number one, and you know what? I've got your back. As I've proved in this last term of council, I'm very much, you know, byline, making sure that it's a thing that we want, or that we need and not want. So of course taxes were always the number one issue, and speed is an issue, but I think our past council showed that we really do address those measures. So I was very, very thankful to meet some phenomenal people out there and hear what their issues are, and I'm so excited that people have given their faith in me to re-elect me.
Everybody's calling.
I'm getting, my phone's kind of going a little crazy right now. That's my grandson.
Oh, how cute. So what were some of the things that you're very proud about that you did the last 4 years, and then maybe talk a little bit about what you've got planned for the next 4 years?
Well, number one is when I ran my last campaign in 2018, I vowed to be fiscally responsible. And our council was so successful in coming in on really record low tax increases, despite the inflationary figures that were far greater than what we were able to, less than 1% for the last 2 years, and we as a council need to be very proud of that. Of course, the transition to OPP, I'm looking forward to this term. We will be going into the billing model, and that will then we'll start seeing some of those cost savings. I've heard a lot of great things from people saying that, you know, the visibility and that the OPP has been a great decision. The sale of the rail, of course, the $32 million. We need to engage with the people to find out what they want done with that. Over $10 million is owed back to the taxpayers, and it's not for me to just throw it away. I really think we need to engage with the people to find out what they want to do with that money.
So now talk a little bit about the 2018 election versus this election. What were the differences? Did you notice anything? Was it harder? Was it easier? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, myself, I was hard on myself more than anything, and I kept thinking, even up to today, that I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, I don't know if I did enough, right? And again, I wasn't about coming in first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. I just wanted to have a place at the table. And I met some really great individuals out there, and I know there was a bit of disappointment from some people saying that they didn't hear from every candidate. And I can tell you, when I talk to people 10, 20 minutes at a time, I can't speak to 22,200 people. However, I would love to have, and I'm always available at any time.
So, you know, just touching on that, how do you think you reached the masses then? How do you think you got over 3,000 votes?
Well, I think the fact that first of all, I'm accountable, I'm available, I listen, I do my research, I make sure that I'm not there on any personal agenda, and I look at the vote, not how Debbie Sherwood would want to vote, how the citizens want me to vote. You've elected me to vote on how you want. And yes, there's going to be times that I'm not going to vote exactly the way somebody wants to vote, but I always did my research and always came prepared.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us here. I know you probably have a party to get back to. Your grandson's been calling.
Oh, I know my grandson.
He wants to give you congratulatory, but thank you so much and congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we have Debbie leaving the set, and we have Joe Andrews coming in. It's like a train station here.
Thank you.
Come on, welcome.
Oh, Regina, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So how do you feel about tonight's results?
I'm humbled, I'm excited, I'm honored. It has been a very tough campaign, and I have to truly be as forward as I can with the people of our community. I really care, and I think it was demonstrated during this past term. I care about our community, I care about our community's future, and it was an absolute delight and pleasure to meet so many people on the campaign trail. I think what had happened is the fact that as I call it, the curtain was lifted after the pandemic, and as a result, you had people that were just anxious to meet some of the candidates, and they were so pleased to meet myself and some of the others that were on the campaign trail. Really an absolute pleasure.
So how did you find, I mean, again, you were a councillor for the last 4 years. How did you find the 2018 campaign versus this campaign?
This one is a little tougher, and you know, some people would say, well, you already have, you know, that profile, you have that experience. The profile and experience is one thing, but we also had so many other wonderful candidates that were also vying for a councillor's seat. And I do want to end up just saying thank you to all of those that stepped forward to run for council, be that for a council position, councillor, deputy mayor, as well as mayor position. It is a tough grind, a campaign, and I think that the difference was the fact that you know, we ended up knocking on many more doors, spoke to many more people. I couldn't assume that I was just a shoo-in, and I'm again absolutely honored to be elected once again.
Are you keeping track of your steps? Do you
Absolutely.
know how many you walked?
I think the last time we spoke to each other was up to about 19,000, 20,000 steps a day, and so from a fitness perspective, I've never felt better.
So now, what are some of the things that you're really proud about that you did in the last 4 years, and then maybe looking forward to the next 4 years?
Well, I think that, you know, some of the things that have been spoken about is, of course, the transition between the previous police force and the OPP. I take a look at the decision that was made on the sale of the railway lands. Now we have a fund of money that is going to help our community move forward with, I hope, some very specific plans. That was something, a part of my platform that I was very clear about, that taking a look at how we do that strategically is very important. Very proud of some of the initiatives that took place even during the height of the pandemic. One of the key portfolios that I had was business and economic development. And during that period of time, during the last 4 years, we had over $250 million of investment in our community. And that's not including, of course, any of the housing, residential development. And so that was really some of the accomplishments. And again, working with a tremendous council team, that is something I'm also very proud of. Now, moving forward, we have a lot on the table, keeping our inflationary concerns at bay, ensuring that our property taxes are kept at an absolute, you know, bare minimum from an increase perspective, and looking at some other things that are going to continue to see investment and also employment opportunities for people in our community.
So what were some of the things that you heard out there? What were people telling you?
Number one, property taxes. Number two, let's see if there are ways that we can end up garnering some additional in our community employment opportunities that pay well. The other was, in fact, recreation. Again, recreation is at the top of mind. It may have been the time of the year where I was out and about and speaking with people, and you know, the nice weather may have had something to do with it. But those are some of the I guess, the top three that came to mind in my conversations with a number of people. And the one thing, Regina, that was really unique is the fact that I met so many new people to our community who've just moved in the last, say, 2 to 3 years, who really have become aware of how special Orange Orangeville is, but want to become a little more involved. And so thus the opportunity for them to get involved with committees and just partake in some of the great businesses that we have in our community, the great amenities we have, our library, recreational facilities, and so on. So it was really great.
So you said earlier it was a tough campaign. What made it tough?
I think what was tough is to spend the time, and I don't want to make this sound incorrect, but speaking with people, I like to listen to what they have to say. So, every step along the way, I would speak with some people for 20, 25 minutes. And so it made the days a little bit longer, but that was truly rewarding, is speaking with people who really care and want representatives that can also demonstrate in their perspective the best interests of moving this community forward. So I'm honored, I'm delighted, privileged to be in this capacity, and I want to thank the people of Orangeville for re-electing me in the role of councillor on this council team.
Great. Well, again, congratulations. Thanks for joining us here this evening.
Thank you,
we appreciate
Radina.
it.
All right.
Thank you. And again, the train is switching gears again. We have Andy McIntosh joining us, our current deputy mayor, who has just been elected as a councillor. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
You knew I was going to go there, didn't you? So,
Everybody does.
I know it's just a title.
Yep.
You've told me that before, but
Yep.
how does that feel? I mean, you're the current deputy mayor. You're now a councillor. You still get to sit and make decisions.
I still get one vote, just like the rest of council. So I'm excited. I'm pleased to be re-elected. I want to thank the people. And just looking at the incumbents that have been re-elected, we're going to continue this great council that we've had.
So what were some of the challenges? Were there any challenges this time out versus last time?
Last time it was kind of one-on-one for deputy mayor. This time I had 10 other people I was
Right.
competing with, so it was a little different, but I'd say that was the biggest challenge. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting the people. I enjoyed hearing the questions. I didn't enjoy Facebook, but it is what it is.
So, thinking back to the last 4 years, what are some of the accomplishments you feel that you've brought to the town of Orangeville, and then maybe what are some of the things you're going to be looking at in the next 4 years?
Well, one of the things we've done is get our taxes under control. I know some people running for council were saying our taxes are out of hand, time for change. Well, our last tax increase was 0.83. Like, you don't get much lower than that without cutting services, which we didn't have to do. So I want to continue that in the coming years, and that's why I'm so glad to be back on council, because I want to continue that. I'm a taxpayer too. I don't like seeing 5% tax increases like we were having. So let's keep this going.
So when you were out the door, you talked about meeting people and talking about taxes. But how did you navigate? I mean, you touched a little bit on social media. I know you love social media.
Yes.
So some other candidates use social media as their platforms to talk to people.
Yes.
You're more the talk to people, so face to face. How do you do that? Because there's a lot of people living in Orangeville. So how did you maintain that campaign?
There's no way you can go and see everybody. You just do the best you can. You knock on as many doors as you can and meet people. Most people I met were very nice. There was some people just didn't care, and that's fine too. They just want to live their lives and don't care about politics, and I guess you could say they were rude in a way, but that's fine. I understand that. I've worked in public life for the last 35, 40 years, so I'm used to it. You're right. I enjoy getting out and talking to people more.
So, I mean, you've spent a lot of years in Orangeville in different capacities, most notably in fire. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, you obviously have this passion and this love for Orangeville. So why? Like, I mean, being in politics is very different than being in fire.
Well, it actually wasn't. Surprising enough. Being the fire chief, it was a very political position. You had your council to report to, and you reported to the people. A lot of politicians, a lot of department heads maybe don't realize they don't work for one individual. They work for the whole town, and especially in politics. You're working for everybody in town. So, and of course you can't please everybody. As I heard Joe say, there's going to be some people that are upset about things, but you try to work with them. So you work for everybody.
So was the OPS-OPP thing still a contentious discussion when you were out there?
No.
No?
It wasn't.
That's good.
I've mostly heard praise for the OPP, which made my decision good. If that had been a wrong decision, I would not have run again. And I told people that. This was the right decision for the town of Orangeville, and I stand by that decision.
Talk a little bit about family support. I mean, that's very important. You can't just go out and run and get into politics without good family support.
No, and I always check with my wife first and my daughter, and are we okay for this? And they basically say, do what you want to do, and I go out and do it.
Is there anything you want to say to our viewers?
I just want to thank them for believing in me again, and let's have another great 4 years.
Okay, well, congratulations. Thanks for coming in. I know you're busy. You probably want to go back and celebrate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Or maybe it's past your bedtime now, right?
Time for a warm milk.
Exactly. Thanks so much. Thank you, Andy. All right, we have another candidate coming in, our new deputy.
Hi, Regina.
Todd Taylor, how are you?
Good.
Sorry, did I pull you away from a really good party?
We had a house full of people, so
okay,
it's great to be here. Yeah.
But
where am I looking? Right there?
just at me.
All right.
We're just
at
going to
you.
chat.
All right, let's
like
chat.
we always do.
Good.
So how do you feel?
I am super happy. Yeah, super pleased. I'm grateful to everybody in Orangeville for their trust, and I guess I'm even more excited for Lisa Post, who I think is going to be a great mayor and a great leader, and just thrilled to be on the team that she's going to lead.
So talk a little bit about that. You went from councillor to deputy mayor. What does that mean for you?
I think it's all about what's going to happen at the county, right? And there's things that happen at the county that Orangeville doesn't have responsibility for. Housing would be one of them as examples. So now I'll have a say in that and an impact on that, and I'm excited about that. So it's an evolution in your career.
So talk a little bit about the campaign in 2018 versus now. Were there differences?
There was. I didn't know what I was doing in 2018, and I ran around, as you know. I knocked on probably 7,000 doors last time, and I was just busy trying to make sure that people knew who I was. And I remember a friend had said, do you think people in Orangeville know who you are? And I said, oh, I think they do. And he said, oh my goodness, you're kidding yourself. Nobody knows who you are. And then over the last 4 years, I think people have gotten to know who I am, and I'm thankful that 4 years later they trust me enough that they voted me back in. So I'm just thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
So talking a little bit about social media, I know you're very engaged on social media and very available.
Yeah.
You answer a lot of questions on social media.
Yeah.
Do you think that helps?
I think it did help for sure. Like, it helped me personally, but the way I look at it is it's our obligation as community leaders to make sure that we're involved in the community and being receptive and trying to help. That's our jobs. So I remember one individual in particular. They were on one of the sites and complaining about an issue, and I phoned them, because you can phone them through Facebook, and they're like, Todd Taylor, what are you doing? And I said, well, you said you had a problem, and I wanted to see it. And sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody than it is to try and write it out on a platform. So that's what I just enjoy it, right? So it's fun to interact with people in that way.
So what are some of the things that you're really proud about that you've done in the last 4 years?
I think my conduct on the Police Services Board was big. That was really hard. I think, as everybody knows, that vote was 6-1. I was the one that didn't want to proceed with that. But once council had decided that they were going to go ahead with OPP, I was right on board. I knew what I needed to do. I negotiated with the police unions. I worked through the pension issues, dealt with lawyer upon lawyer, and that was all behind the scenes. People really didn't know what we were doing, and the reality is we couldn't talk about it because it was legal stuff. And I was just proud of the way I conducted myself. I thought that was really good. And I guess if I could, the second piece, which is a little more human, is there was a family in Rolling Hills that their house was being hit by a car. Cars kept running into this home because they couldn't make the curve, and I, coupled with who is now our mayor, Lisa Post, went and sat with them in their kitchen and committed to them that we would do everything in our power to make this right. And it took us a while. Like, we struggled to get that done, but we got it done and we did what was right. And I'm really proud of that. It's important. It's just as important that everybody is looked after as it is that one is looked after. And I thought we did a really good job there.
So what were some of the issues or the concerns that you found the voters were telling you at the front door this time around?
I think people, like on the small side, people are really upset with sidewalks. That was big, you know. So the very fact that orange gets painted on a sidewalk and then doesn't get fixed for years upon years, that was loud and clear Orangeville. So thank you very much for that. Financially, like, let's live within our means. Let's do what's right. We can't afford to keep taking these tax increases, especially in an inflationary environment. Like, you need to be responsible. So that message was loud and clear. And I think the communication piece, like, I think I'm a really good communicator. Like, you kind of need to be confident versus arrogant when you're in these situations, but I think that's one of my strengths. And so I'll continue to communicate with people as we go forward. But I think the town itself, we need to continue to do a better job of communicating with people. Like, they shouldn't hear it for the first time from the local councillor. It should be common knowledge, right? So I think we'll do a better job at that moving forward as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, and congratulations on your win.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. New Deputy Mayor
Yeah,
of
this is
Orangeville.
great. Thank you, Orangeville.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And we're going to switch gears.
Take your mic off and use it like this.
Oh, okay.
So go under here. I don't have a mic.
I'm going to share my mic with you, and it's very short cord. Well, congratulations. You're a newbie here. The other ones are all seasoned. They've done this. They can talk about what they did in 2018 versus this time around, but you're a new guy here on the block.
Yes.
Congratulations on your win. So talk a little bit about the campaign. What do you think was the strong thing? What do you think it was that voters liked about you that put you into this role?
Well, I just came in and just tried to be honest. That was my goal, and I was lucky enough to get enough votes to succeed today.
So what were some of the things that you heard when you were out there? I know you knocked on doors. I'm sure you did. So what did people tell you?
They just wanted a little bit of change. It was the present council did a great job, and I'm actually looking forward to working with most of them. But they just had some change that they wanted, and I had a new voice, and I'm hoping that I can bring it in.
So what was that change? What do you think it was?
I just said that I want to be the new voice. I want to be the new voice of the people that don't sometimes get a voice. So that's why I threw my name in, and I was lucky enough to win tonight.
So what are you looking forward to for the next 4 years?
Just some transparency. I want people to know that they can count on my voice. I look forward to working with the senior guys that have been here for a while. And, I'm a little nervous tonight, a little overwhelmed, but that's okay. But I just want to thank my wife. She's my big supporter, my family, and everybody that supported me and voted for me. So.
Well, congratulations on your win, and thank you for coming in. I know you're busy. I think we're going now to a special guest. We're going back over to Simran, who has a special guest.
Hi, thank you so much, Rowena. So now with us we have our special Lisa Post. What a grand Diwali celebration for me here.
I do.
I have been cheering her on all the way through this campaign. So congratulations, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Simran. I really appreciate your support, and I appreciate seeing everybody here. Thank you all for your leadership in the community.
So I want to hear from you. What is your message to the residents, those who supported you and your campaign and those who didn't?
I am so unbelievably humbled and grateful. This is I'm going to try not to get emotional, but this is the community that raised me. This is where I grew up. This is my home, and now I'm the flippin' mayor. Right? Like, who'd have thought it, right? Congrats. So, I spent my whole life here. It's the community that raised me, and I'm just so grateful that everybody put their trust in me, and I won't let them down. I'm going to work really hard for this community and make sure that we can set it up for the future and for today.
Yeah, and we just celebrated Person's Day almost like a week ago, and I was updated on everything that you had shared, and it was so inspiring as well. So now I want to hear from you, because we still have some work to do when it comes to gender parity in politics especially. So what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, I knocked on the hardest door of my entire political career through this campaign, and it was a gentleman who told me flat out that he didn't think I should run for mayor because it was a man's job. And I laughed because I thought, in 2022, you've got to be joking. And unfortunately, he wasn't. He believed honestly that this was a job that was better done by a mayor. So it's now my responsibility to completely prove him wrong.
Yes,
so that's exactly it. Because I want, I've got my daughter here tonight, and I want her to know that she can be the next mayor when she's old enough. And, I want her to know that she can reach for the stars and hit any goal that she wants to.
Wow, and I do see, look at those smiling faces. They've worked so hard during your campaign. Charlie, Mike, you know, kudos to you guys for supporting her campaign throughout. Must have been so fantastic for you guys. And today, especially tonight with the celebration, I'm sure you're going to go all out.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty neat.
Now, back to politics.
Yeah.
So what is the top priority for you as soon as you go in that council? What will be the first thing that you will focus on?
Can I only give you one? Because I really want to give you two.
Okay, give me two.
From the voices of residents, affordability is the #1 priority. The cost of everything is very high right now, and there are a lot of residents in our community that are struggling to make ends meet. So priority #1 is that we need to get the budget done. That's going to be our first role as soon as we start our council meetings. So we need to make sure that we do that with a really tight leash on understanding where global inflation is right now and trying to really balance it so that it doesn't hit our taxpayers' pockets. So that's priority #1. But almost more importantly, or at the same level of that, is that I now get to work with an awesome deputy mayor and 5 amazing councillors who all campaigned on some things that are really important to them. So my first priority before we have our first council meeting is to sit down with all of them and really understand what their priorities are and what the things that are important to them are, because I really want to make sure that, you know, the voters voted all of them in because they believed in their visions, and I need to make sure that our council expresses and reflects the visions of the voters.
Thank you. That's a great point of view. Over to you, Ellen. You've worked with Annette Groves, and we were talking about collaboration between the mayor of Caledon and mayor of Orangeville, and you've seen Lisa in action as well. So how do you think this collaboration is going to span out, and any advice that you would have for Lisa?
Well, no, I think Lisa is definitely showing the skill set, has the skill set to do an awesome job as mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one thing that I was saying earlier that Sandy and I have been able to do is break down the barriers between Orangeville and Caledon over the years.
Yeah.
It was a little tense there for a little while, and we found, but I'll tell you, we've developed a really good relationship, and I really hope we can keep that going forward with what we've been able to achieve. And you know what? We're stronger working together than being divisive, and I think it's time that we all become good neighbors, and I think we've proven that with Sandy's leadership, and hopefully I think I've got a pretty good council. I see that's looks like it's going to be elected here in Caledon, and I hope the mayor can, you know, between our mayor and yourself, that we can continue on that beautiful relationship we got.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan.
All right, over to you, Sandy. Now that you're handing over this charge to Lisa, what recommendations, suggestions you have for her?
Well, we know that we've got 5 councillors who have, you know, been re-elected. We all worked well together, collaborated, and we got some excellent things accomplished for the community. So I think the flavor of the past council is going to be carried forward by Lisa and Todd and the other members that have just been elected into the new council. The other thing that happened over the last 4 years was a renewed collaboration with Dufferin County. You know, the town had historically had some friction there, and I think Deputy Mayor McIntosh, the ex-deputy mayor, and now Councilor McIntosh, and I did work closely with Dufferin County. We did cooperate with a lot of things, and I think you know, Mayor-elect Post and Deputy Mayor-elect Taylor are going to work together. I know that they do share similar thoughts and a lot of things, and I think they're going to work collaboratively for the good of Orangeville and within Dufferin County. So, but yeah, I just think more of the same. I remember seeing in some of the political, you know, rhetoric and other things, people talking about change, and I'm like,
we don't want to do that. Yeah.
What did you want to change? I mean, you know, again, I think for 7 new councillors to tackle what we tackled and some very contentious issues and get through the pandemic as well, I hope the community appreciates the tough sledding that we went through, and that staff did. And so, but I know the new council, you know, of course I know all the 5 existing councillors very well, and I know Rick. I've known Rick for many years, Rick Stevens, and of course I've come to know Tess in the past year or so, and I know she's up to the challenge as Rick is, and I think you know, Mayor Post is going to have a great council and some very good people to work with, and nothing but positive things for Orangeville to come.
Oh my, the pride that I felt in my heart as soon as he said Mayor Post. So Mayor Post, now over to you. So you have worked with most of these people on council.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 new candidates. And what suggestions or what advice do you have while they start with your experience as a previous council member?
Well, before I say that, I want to thank Sandy. Thank you for your leadership over the last 4 years. It's been an honor to work with you, and I wish you all the best in whatever's next. I know you've got some new grandbabies that you need to spend some time with, so thank you for everything.
We'll
I
be
know
catching up with friends and family.
absolutely.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that. But for Tess and Rick, I'm so excited to welcome them to the team. I've gotten to know Tess over the last year and a half or so, and she has just proven to be an absolutely amazing community-minded person, and I'm just so excited of what she's going to bring to the table. And for Rick as well. You know, I've gotten to know Rick over the last little while, and I'm excited for him. And my advice to both of them is just take every opportunity to learn. Ask the questions. Nothing is stupid to ask. Municipal world is difficult. It's different. It's not a normal business. So take the time and ask the questions, and you will learn along the way.
Okay, perfect. But you know what? Under your leadership, I have no doubts that they are going to have an absolutely fantastic time, even while they're making tough decisions. So thank you so much, Lisa, that you are building this community up, and you continue to do that. And thank you for making time today.
Absolutely.
I would also like to thank Mayor Sandy Brown, who is outgoing now, and Ellen. Thank you so much for making time and adding value to these conversations tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And a big, huge thank you to Radina, who continuously kept us updated as well. Thank you so much, Radina. So we would like to wrap up the night here, and looking forward to the new council and see how things are going to go in the next 4 years.